Captain Rachel Morgan had never failed at anything in her life. Not in high school, not in college, and certainly not in her 12 years serving the United States Army. But here she stood, mud-caked and trembling, watching her platoon complete the obstacle course while she remained frozen at the base of the 30-foot rope climb. Fort Bragg's Advanced Combat Training Program was designed to break soldiers down and build them back up stronger. For 3 weeks, Rachel had watched herself crumble. Every drill became a nightmare. Her hands shook during weapons assembly. Her legs gave out during the runs she used to complete with ease. And now, this rope, this simple rope she'd climbed 100 times before, might as well have been a mountain. "Morgan, move it," Sergeant Davis barked from below. His face was red, whether from anger or the cold November wind, Rachel couldn't tell, probably both. She gripped the rope again. Her palms were sweaty despite the freezing temperature. She pulled herself up 6 inches, then a foot. Her arms began to shake. The rope swayed. Panic flooded her chest like ice water. She fell. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs. She lay in the dirt, staring up at the gray North Carolina sky, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. "That's it, Morgan," Davis said, standing over her. "Third failure this week. You're out of the program." The other soldiers jogged past, their boots splashing mud across her uniform. Some looked away. Others whispered. Lieutenant Jake Brennan, who joined the program the same day as Rachel, didn't bother hiding his smirk. "Guess the pressure finally got to her," Brennan muttered to the man beside him, loud enough for Rachel to hear. "Some people just aren't cut out for the real stuff." Rachel wanted to scream that she'd served in 2 combat zones, that she'd saved 3 soldiers during an ambush in Afghanistan, that she'd earned 2 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart. But the words wouldn't come. Something inside her had broken, and she didn't know how to fix it. That evening, Rachel sat alone in the base cafeteria, picking at food she couldn't taste. Her phone buzzed, her mother calling for the 3rd time that day. Rachel ignored it. How could she explain this? Her mom had been so proud when Rachel was selected for advanced combat training. Only the best were chosen. Only the strongest. "This seat taken." Rachel looked up to find Commander James Mitchell standing beside her table. Mitchell was a living legend, a Navy SEAL with 25 years of service, countless classified missions, and a reputation for turning struggling soldiers into warriors. He was at Fort Bragg as a guest instructor, brought in to teach a single week-long module on mental resilience. "It's all yours, sir," Rachel said, starting to stand. "Stay." Mitchell sat down across from her. He was in his late 50s, his face weathered but his eyes sharp. "Heard you had a rough day." Rachel felt her throat tighten. "Yes, sir. I've had a rough 3 weeks, actually." "Davis told me you're being dropped from the program." "Yes, sir." Mitchell unwrapped his sandwich, took a bite, and chewed thoughtfully. Rachel waited for the lecture, the disappointment, the questions about what had happened to her. Instead, he asked, "You ever hear about the mission in Kandahar? The one where my team got pinned down for 18 hours?" Rachel nodded. Everyone had heard about Kandahar. It was the stuff of military legend. "I froze during that mission," Mitchell said quietly. "Hour 14. We were taking heavy fire. My spotter went down and I just froze, couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. My team had to cover for me." Rachel stared at him. "But you're Commander Mitchell, you're—" "Human," he interrupted. "Just like you." He leaned forward. "Captain Morgan, I've read your file. Afghanistan, the ambush, what you did for your team. You're not a coward and you're not weak. So let me ask you something. What happened 3 weeks ago? What changed?" Rachel's hands started shaking again. She gripped the edge of the table. "I don't know, sir. I can't anymore. Every time I try, my body won't cooperate. My mind keeps showing me." She stopped, unable to continue. "Showing you what?" Rachel closed her eyes. "The ambush, Afghanistan. I keep seeing Corporal Davis. No relation to the sergeant. I keep seeing him get hit. I was right there. I pulled him to safety, but I can't stop seeing it. And now, every time I face a challenge here, my body thinks I'm back there. It thinks I'm dying. Mitchell nodded slowly. You've got PTSD, Captain. Battle mind injury. It's not weakness. It's what happens when your brain tries to keep you alive. Then I don't belong here, Rachel whispered. Mitchell stood up. He looked down at her with an expression Rachel couldn't quite read, part compassion, part challenge. Here's what you need to understand, he said. You're not fighting the course. You're fighting yourself. Then he walked away, leaving Rachel alone with those words echoing in her mind. Rachel didn't sleep that night. She lay in her barracks bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying Commander Mitchell's words. You're fighting yourself. She'd thought she was fine. After Afghanistan, she'd gone through the standard debriefings, talked to the counselors, taken the tests. Everyone said she was good to go. She'd thrown herself back into work, pushed harder, trained longer. She'd volunteered for advanced combat training to prove what exactly? That she was still strong, that the ambush hadn't affected her. At 500 hours, Rachel got up and walked to the training grounds in the dark. The obstacle course loomed like a sleeping monster. She stood before the rope climb, the one that had defeated her yesterday. You planning to try again or just stare at it? Commander Mitchell appeared from the shadows, coffee mug in hand. I've been watching soldiers train for 30 years. The ones who show up before dawn are either the most dedicated or the most desperate. Which one are you? Honestly, sir, I don't know anymore. Mitchell handed her his coffee. Drink, then listen. The coffee was strong and sweet. Rachel took a grateful sip and handed it back. When I froze in Kandahar, Mitchell began, I thought my career was over. I thought I'd let everyone down. But my commander at the time, he told me something that changed everything. He said, Mitchell, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's knowing the fear will be there and doing the job anyway. But I can't do the job, Rachel said. I can't even climb a rope. You can climb that rope in your sleep, Captain. I've seen your previous evaluation scores. You're stronger than half the men in this program, but strength isn't your problem right now. Then what is? Mitchell turned to face her fully. You're trying to be the soldier you were before Afghanistan, but that soldier doesn't exist anymore. You need to become the soldier you are now, someone who's seen the worst, survived it, and carries that knowledge. That's actually more valuable, but only if you stop fighting it. Rachel felt tears sting her eyes. I don't know how to do that, sir. Yes, you do. You just need to remember one thing. Mitchell paused, his expression serious. Your body is trying to protect you. It remembers the danger, the trauma. So you need to tell it out loud if you have to that you're safe now, that this is training, not combat, that you're not back there. It sounded too simple. But as the sun began to rise over Fort Bragg, Rachel found herself standing at the base of the rope again. I'm safe, she whispered. This is training, I'm not back there. Her hands still shook as she gripped the rope. The panic began to build in her chest. But this time, she recognized it for what it was, a memory, not reality. I'm safe, she said louder. This is training, I'm not in Afghanistan. She pulled herself up, 1 foot, 2 feet. Her arms trembled, but they held. She kept climbing, kept repeating the words. Halfway up, the panic threatened to overwhelm her. She could see the ambush behind her eyes, the explosion, the blood, Corporal Davis's face. I'm safe, she shouted. I'm safe, I'm safe. She reached the top. For a moment, she just hung there, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. Then she looked down. Commander Mitchell gave her a single nod of approval. The descent was easier. When her feet hit the ground, Rachel felt something shift inside her. Not a cure, not a complete healing, but a crack in the wall she'd built around her trauma. Good, Mitchell said. Now do it again. Sorry. You did it once. Now you need to prove to yourself it wasn't a fluke. And then you need to do it again and again until your body believes what your mind knows, that you're safe. Rachel climbed that rope 17 times that morning, by the time the other soldiers arrived for their 700 training. She was exhausted but standing. Lieutenant Brennan raised his eyebrows when he saw her. "Thought you washed out, Morgan," he said. "Not yet," Rachel replied. Sergeant Davis approached, clipboard in hand. "Morgan, you're supposed to be processing your program dismissal." "With respect, Sergeant, I'm requesting a meeting with the program director. I'd like a chance to continue." Davis's expression hardened. "You've already had your chances." "Then I'm asking for one more." "This isn't a charity, Captain. We don't give participation medals here." Before Rachel could respond, Commander Mitchell stepped forward. "Sergeant Davis, a word." The two men walked a short distance away. Rachel couldn't hear their conversation, but she saw Davis's face cycle through several emotions: surprise, skepticism, reluctance, and finally, resignation. When they returned, Davis looked at Rachel with barely concealed annoyance. "You've got 48 hours to prove you belong here. You'll redo every drill you failed. If you pass, you stay. If not, you're done. Understood?" "Yes, Sergeant. Thank you, Sergeant." As the training day began, Rachel realized the other soldiers were watching her differently. Some with curiosity, others with doubt. Brennan made a show of whispering to his buddies, glancing her way with obvious disdain. The first drill was a timed weapons assembly. Rachel's hands shook as she picked up the pieces of the M4 rifle. The panic began to build, but she closed her eyes and spoke Mitchell's words in her mind. "You're not fighting the course. You're fighting yourself." "I'm safe," she whispered. "This is training." Her hands steadied. She began to assemble the weapon, each piece clicking into place. When she finished, she was 3 seconds over the required time, but she'd completed it without falling apart. Small victories, she told herself. That's how you climb out of the darkness, one small victory at a time. That night, Rachel finally called her mother back. "Rachel, I've been so worried. Is everything okay?" Rachel took a deep breath. "Mom, I need to tell you something. I've been struggling, really struggling, but I think I'm starting to figure it out." For the first time since Afghanistan, Rachel began to talk about what had really happened. Not the sanitized version she'd given in debriefings, but the truth, the fear, the blood, the nightmares that still woke her up. Her mother listened, and when Rachel finished, she said the words Rachel needed to hear. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Not for being perfect, but for being honest." Rachel went asleep that night with a strange new feeling. It wasn't confidence, not yet, but it was hope. The next 48 hours pushed Rachel to her limits. Each drill was a battle, not against the course, but against the memories that threatened to swallow her whole. The 5-mile run brought back the memory of running through gunfire in Afghanistan, her legs pumping as explosions shook the ground. Rachel focused on her breathing, on the rhythm of her feet, on the North Carolina pine trees instead of the desert dust. She finished the run in 32 minutes, not her best time, but well within the required limits. The tactical simulation exercise was worse. In a darkened building filled with smoke and the sound of simulated gunfire, Rachel had to navigate through rooms and identify threats. Halfway through, she found herself paralyzed in a corner, her rifle gripped so tight her knuckles went white. "Morgan, status." Sergeant Davis's voice crackled through her radio. Rachel couldn't answer. Her throat had closed. She was back in the compound in Afghanistan, hearing the real screams, smelling the real smoke. "You're safe. This is training. You're not back there." She forced the words out loud, her voice barely a whisper. Then louder, "I'm safe. This is training." She moved. Each step felt like pushing through concrete, but she moved. She completed the exercise, last in her group, but she completed it. Lieutenant Brennan was waiting when she emerged from the building. "Rough in there, Morgan." "I managed," she said, not taking the bait. "See, that's the problem," Brennan said, stepping closer. His breath smelled like tobacco and coffee. "You just manage. The rest of us excel. Maybe Davis was right. Maybe you don't belong here. Rachel met his eyes. Maybe you should worry about your own performance, Lieutenant. My performance is just fine. But when we're in the field, I need to know the person next to me isn't going to freeze up and get everyone killed. The words hit like a physical blow. It was Rachel's deepest fear, spoken out loud. Before she could respond, Brennan had walked away, leaving her standing alone in the cold. That night, Rachel found Commander Mitchell in the gym, working through a weight routine that would have impressed men half his age. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted." "How do you deal with people who think you're weak, who think you don't belong?" Mitchell set down his weights and grabbed a towel. "You mean Brennan?" "Among others." "Let me tell you something about men like Brennan," Mitchell said. "They've usually never faced real adversity. Combat training, that's just a game to them. They haven't been tested by actual war, actual loss. So they look down on people who have because deep down they're terrified they won't measure up when their turn comes." He said, "I'm going to get people killed." "Are you?" The question caught Rachel off guard. No, I won't." "Then his opinion doesn't matter. The only opinions that matter are yours and your commanding officers. And right now, I'm watching a soldier fight harder than anyone else in this program. That tells me everything I need to know." Rachel's second day of testing brought the obstacle course, the full course, not just the rope climb. 12 stations of physical and mental challenges designed to simulate the chaos and exhaustion of combat. She tackled each one methodically. The wall climb, the crawl under barbed wire, the tire run. Every muscle in her body screamed, but she pushed through. When she reached the rope climb, the obstacle that had defeated her so many times, a small crowd had gathered to watch. Brennan was among them, so was Sergeant Davis, and Commander Mitchell standing slightly apart from the others. Rachel gripped the rope. Her hands were bleeding from the earlier obstacles. Her arms felt like lead. The panic rose in her chest, familiar and terrifying. "This should be good," she heard Brennan mutter. Something inside Rachel snapped. Not in a bad way, in a way that felt like breaking through to the other side of her fear. "I'm safe," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is training. I'm not in Afghanistan. I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm going to climb this rope." She pulled herself up, hand over hand, foot over foot. The crowd below faded. The voices faded. There was only the rope, the burn in her muscles, and her own steady breathing. She reached the top and rang the bell. The sound echoed across the training ground. When she descended, Sergeant Davis was waiting with his stopwatch. 37 minutes, 15 seconds for the full course. "That's acceptable, Morgan." "Barely." But there was something in his voice that hadn't been there before, a grudging respect. "Thank you, Sergeant." Commander Mitchell approached as the crowd dispersed. "How do you feel?" "Exhausted, sore, alive." "Good, because tomorrow is your final test. The night navigation exercise. 12 miles through the woods in the dark with full gear. It's the one that washes out more soldiers than any other." Rachel's stomach dropped. Night exercises were her worst nightmare. Darkness plus stress equaled panic attacks. "I'll be ready, sir." "I know you will, but Rachel," Mitchell's use of her first name made her pay attention, "you've already proven yourself. Tomorrow isn't about showing anyone else what you can do. It's about showing yourself." That night Rachel lay in her bunk, preparing mentally for the navigation exercise. She'd done night ops in Afghanistan. They'd been some of the most terrifying experiences of her deployment, but she'd survived them. She'd excelled at them, even. The soldier in the next bunk leaned over. "Hey, Morgan." It was Private First Class Sarah Chen, one of the younger soldiers in the program. "Yeah. I just wanted to say, what you did today was impressive. The way you kept going even when everyone was watching, waiting for you to fail. That took guts." "Thanks, Jen. And that thing you said about being safe and this being training, I'm going to remember that. I think it might help me too." Rachel felt a warmth spread through her chest. Maybe her struggle wasn't just about her. Maybe by fighting through it publicly, honestly, she was helping others too. We've all got our demons, Chen. The trick is not letting them win. The next morning arrived too quickly. The night navigation exercise would begin at 1900 hours and run until dawn. 12 miles through dense forest, using only a compass and a map, carrying 60 pounds of gear. Soldiers would be monitored but would navigate alone. It was designed to simulate being separated from your unit in hostile territory. As the sun set, the 23 remaining soldiers in the program gathered at the starting point. Lieutenant Brennan looked confident, joking with his friends. Private Chen looked nervous but determined. Rachel just felt quiet inside, the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. Sergeant Davis gave the briefing. "You have until 600 hours to reach the extraction point. There are 3 checkpoints along the way. Miss a checkpoint or arrive after 600 and you fail. Any questions?" No one spoke. "Then good luck. You'll be sent out at 5-minute intervals. Morgan, you're first." Of course she was. Rachel adjusted her pack and checked her compass one last time. As she waited for the signal to start, Commander Mitchell appeared beside her. "Remember," he said quietly, "the darkness is just the darkness. It can't hurt you. Your mind might try to convince you otherwise, but you know the truth." Rachel nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "One more thing," Mitchell added. "You asked how I deal with people who think I'm weak. I prove them wrong, not with words but with actions. Tonight you're going to prove them all wrong." The signal came. Rachel stepped into the forest and the darkness swallowed her whole. The first hour wasn't terrible. Rachel's training kicked in, check the compass, count the paces, identify landmarks. The forest was alive with sounds. Wind through the pines, the distant call of an owl, the crunch of her boots on fallen leaves. But as true darkness fell and the moon disappeared behind clouds, the memories began to intrude. She was back in Afghanistan, on a night patrol that had gone wrong. The darkness had hidden enemy fighters. The first explosion had come without warning. Rachel had been thrown to the ground, her ears ringing, her night vision goggles cracked and useless. "Stop it," she said out loud, her voice swallowed by the forest. "That's not real. This is real. I'm at Fort Bragg. I'm safe." She kept moving, but every shadow became an enemy. Every sound became gunfire. Her heart raced. Her breathing grew shallow and rapid. The 60-pound pack felt like it weighed 200 pounds. At the first checkpoint, a training officer verified her arrival. "You okay, Captain? You look pale." "I'm fine," Rachel lied. She wasn't fine. The panic was building like a wave, and she didn't know if she could hold it back for 11 more miles. She pushed forward into the darkness. Mile 3 brought her to a steep ravine. The path down was treacherous. Loose rocks, exposed roots, darkness so complete she could barely see her own hands. Rachel stood at the edge, paralyzed. In her mind, she was back in the compound, trying to drag Corporal Davis to safety while bullets tore through the air around them. He was so heavy, so much blood. The darkness had made everything worse, turned the world into a nightmare of shadows and screams. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't." But then she heard it, Commander Mitchell's voice, as clear as if he were standing beside her. "You're not fighting the course. You're fighting yourself." And suddenly, Rachel understood, really understood. She wasn't weak because she had PTSD. She wasn't broken because the memories haunted her. She was human. She had survived something terrible, and her mind and body were doing exactly what they were designed to do: remember the danger, try to keep her safe. The problem was that they didn't understand that the danger had passed. "Okay," she said to the darkness, to her fear, to the memories. "I hear you. I know you're trying to protect me, thank you, but I'm safe now. This is different, this is training, I need you to trust me." It felt ridiculous, talking to her own trauma like it was a separate person, But something shifted. The panic didn't disappear, but it lessened, became manageable. Rachel started down the ravine. She slipped once, caught herself, kept going. At the bottom, she allowed herself a moment of pride. She'd done it. Miles 4 through 7 were a blur of exhaustion and determination. Rachel's legs burned. Her shoulders ached from the pack. But she kept moving, kept talking to herself when the panic rose, kept reminding herself where she was and what was real. At the second checkpoint, she arrived to find Lieutenant Brennan already there, taking a water break. He looked surprised to see her. "Morgan, didn't think you'd make it this far." Rachel was too tired to engage. She verified her checkpoint with the officer and prepared to continue. "Wait," Brennan said. "I'm serious. I really didn't think you'd make it, after watching you struggle these past weeks. No offense, but you seemed done." Rachel turned to look at him. In the harsh glare of the checkpoint's portable lights, Brennan looked younger than usual, less cocky. "Why are you telling me this, Lieutenant?" He shrugged, looking uncomfortable. "I guess because I was wrong about you being weak. That's not weakness what you're dealing with. I didn't get it before, but I do now. My brother came back from Iraq different. He struggled too. I didn't understand it then either." It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was close. "We all fight different battles," Rachel said. "The trick is not giving up." She left Brennan at the checkpoint and pushed into the final stretch of forest. 5 more miles. She could do this. But mile 9 brought a crisis. Rachel's knee, the one injured in Afghanistan, the one that had mostly healed, began to scream with pain. Every step sent a jolt through her leg. She tried to push through it, but the pain grew worse and worse until she found herself limping, then hobbling, then finally stopping altogether. She sank down against a tree, breathing hard. Her knee was swelling. She could feel it through her pants. She checked her watch. 3:30 hours. 2.5 hours to reach the extraction point, and she was barely halfway through the final stretch. Rachel closed her eyes. She'd come so far, done so much. And now this, a physical injury, not a mental one, threatening to end everything. For a long moment, she sat in the darkness and considered quitting. She could activate her emergency beacon. Someone would come get her. There was no shame in stopping due to injury. But then she thought about Private Chen, who'd said Rachel's struggle had inspired her. She thought about Commander Mitchell, who'd shared his own moments of weakness to help her understand she wasn't alone. She thought about her mother, waiting for a phone call, hoping her daughter had found her strength again. And she thought about Corporal Davis, who hadn't had the choice to quit, who died in her arms in the darkness of Afghanistan. "I'm going to finish this for you," Rachel said to the memory of him. "I'm going to finish this for all of us." She pulled herself to her feet. The pain in her knee was incredible, but she could bear it. She fashioned a makeshift brace from some paracord and a stick from her pack. It wasn't pretty, but it helped. She started walking. Not fast, she couldn't manage fast, but steady, one painful step at a time. The third checkpoint appeared like a mirage. The officer there took one look at Rachel's improvised knee brace and asked if she needed medical attention. "I need to finish," Rachel said. "Captain, if you're injured." "I need to finish." The officer hesitated, then nodded. 2 miles to extraction. You've got 90 minutes. Rachel had done 2 miles in 15 minutes during her peak training. Tonight, injured and exhausted, it might as well have been 20 miles. But she kept moving. The sky began to lighten. Dawn was coming. Rachel focused on putting one foot in front of the other, blocking out the pain, the exhaustion, the voice in her head that said she couldn't do it. And then through the trees she saw it, the extraction point, the finish line. A handful of soldiers who'd already completed the course stood waiting. Sergeant Davis was there with his clipboard. Commander Mitchell stood off to one side. Rachel limped the final 100 yards. She could see Davis checking his watch. She had minutes to spare. When she crossed the line, her legs finally gave out. She sank to her knees, gasping for breath. Someone, Private Chen, she realized, handed her a water bottle. "You did it," Chen said, grinning. "Morgan, you actually did it." Sergeant Davis approached, his expression unreadable. Captain Morgan completed all checkpoints, arrived at extraction at 5:47 hours. That's, he paused and Rachel braced herself for criticism. That's passing, barely but passing, and given the state of your knee, that's also pretty damn impressive. But Rachel looked up at him in shock. I passed. I'm staying in the program. Unless you want to quit, Captain. No, Sergeant, I don't want to quit. Davis almost smiled. Almost. Good. Get that knee looked at and be ready for training Monday morning. Dismissed. As Rachel struggled to her feet, Commander Mitchell appeared beside her. He didn't say anything, just offered his arm for support. She took it gratefully. "Thank you, sir," she said as they walked toward the medical tent. "For everything." "You did this, Rachel, not me. I just reminded you of what you already knew." "What was that?" Mitchell stopped and looked at her seriously. "That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's knowing the fear will be there and doing the job anyway." 3 weeks later, Rachel stood in the Fort Bragg auditorium with the 19 other soldiers who had completed advanced combat training. They'd started with 43. The attrition rate was always high, but this class had been particularly brutal. Lieutenant Brennan stood 2 people down from her in formation. He'd made it through, though Rachel had heard he'd struggled in the final week's leadership exercises. Private Chen was there too, beaming with pride. And Sergeant Davis stood at the front, looking almost pleased with the group assembled before him. But it was Commander Mitchell who would be presenting the completion certificates. As a guest instructor, he didn't have to participate in the ceremony, but he'd insisted. The base commander spoke first, giving the standard speech about honor, sacrifice, and excellence. Rachel barely heard it. She was still processing the fact that she'd made it, that she hadn't let her PTSD win, that she was standing here among soldiers she respected. Then Mitchell took the podium. "I've been training soldiers for 25 years, he began. "I've seen the strongest men crack under pressure. I've seen the most confident soldiers quit when things got hard. And I've seen people who should have failed succeed through sheer determination." He paused, his eyes scanning the formation. They landed on Rachel for a brief moment. This class embodied all of that. You pushed each other. You challenged each other. And most importantly, you were honest with yourselves about your limitations and then worked to overcome them. That's what makes a real soldier, not perfection, but the courage to keep going even when everything in you says to quit. As Mitchell called each soldier forward to receive their certificate, Rachel felt her heart pounding. When her name was called, she marched to the front, her knee still slightly stiff but functional. Mitchell handed her the certificate. As she took it, he said quietly so only she could hear, "I'm proud of you, Captain. You earned this twice over." "Thank you, sir." But Mitchell wasn't done. As Rachel turned to return to formation, he spoke again, this time to the entire room. "Captain Morgan's journey through this program is worth highlighting," he said. Rachel froze, uncertain what was coming. 3 weeks into training, she was failing every drill. She was facing demons most of us can't imagine. She could have quit. No one would have blamed her. But instead, she chose to fight not against the course but against herself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the hardest fight there is. The room was silent. Rachel felt her face flush. "Captain Morgan," Mitchell continued, "please face the formation." Rachel turned. 20 soldiers looked back at her, some she knew well now. Others were still relative strangers, but all of them were listening. "Tell them," Mitchell said, "tell them what you learned." Rachel's throat went dry. Public speaking had never been her strength, and speaking about her trauma felt impossibly vulnerable. But Mitchell's eyes held encouragement, and she realized this wasn't for her. It was for every soldier in this room who might one day face their own invisible battle. "I learned," Rachel began, her voice shaking slightly. That strength doesn't mean you never fall apart. It means you find a way to put yourself back together. I have PTSD from my deployment in Afghanistan. For weeks, I tried to pretend I didn't, try to just push through it, and it almost destroyed me. She could see some soldiers nodding. Others looked uncomfortable. Commander Mitchell taught me that you can't fight your way through trauma the same way you fight through physical exhaustion. You have to acknowledge it, understand it, and work with it. You have to be honest about your struggles instead of hiding them. And that honesty, that's the bravest thing a soldier can do. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Not the polite, required applause of a military ceremony, but genuine, thunderous applause. Private Chen was wiping her eyes. Even Sergeant Davis was nodding approval. And Lieutenant Brennan stepped forward and saluted her. It wasn't required. They were the same rank. But he did it anyway, a gesture of respect that Rachel felt in her bones. After the ceremony, Rachel's phone rang. It was her mother. "Sweetheart, did you graduate?" "I did, Mom, I really did." "I'm so proud of you. I always have been, but today especially." Rachel stepped outside the auditorium into the cool December air. "Thanks, Mom. I'm proud of me too." 2 days later, Rachel was called to the base commander's office. She assumed it was routine post-training debriefing. Instead, she found Commander Mitchell waiting with Colonel Sarah Reeves, the base commander. "At ease, Captain," Reeves said. "Please sit." Rachel sat confused. Reeves leaned forward. "Captain Morgan, Commander Mitchell has recommended you for a new position. We're developing a program for soldiers dealing with combat stress and PTSD. We need someone to help design and implement it, someone who understands the struggle firsthand and has proven they can overcome it." Rachel's heart skipped. "Ma'am, I'm honored, but I'm not a psychologist." "We have psychologists," Reeves said. "What we don't have is a soldier who can speak to other soldiers about this from experience, who can be living proof that combat stress doesn't end your career. Commander Mitchell believes you're that person." Rachel looked at Mitchell, who gave her a slight nod. "It's your choice, Captain," he said. "You could go back to your regular unit, continue your career as planned, or you could help build something that might save lives in a different way." Rachel thought about Private Chen, who'd thanked her for being honest. She thought about all the soldiers who were probably struggling right now, hiding it because they feared being seen as weak. "I'll do it," she said. "I'd be honored to do it." Reeves smiled. "Good. You'll start after the holidays. Commander Mitchell will be consulting on the program as well." As Rachel left the office, Mitchell walked with her. "You know," she said, "that first day in the cafeteria when you told me I was fighting myself, was that planned?" Mitchell shrugged. "I saw a soldier in pain who needed help. Sometimes that's all the plan you need." That one sentence changed everything for me. "Which sentence?" "You're not fighting the course. You're fighting yourself." Mitchell stopped walking. "Rachel, that wasn't me trying to be profound. That was just the truth. But you know what? You could have heard those words from a dozen people and not been ready to accept them. The fact that they reached you, that you did the work to understand them, that was all you." 3 months later, the Combat Stress Resilience Program officially launched at Fort Bragg. Captain Rachel Morgan stood before a room of 20 soldiers. All of them referred to the program by their commanding officers, all of them struggling with invisible wounds. "My name is Captain Rachel Morgan," she began, "and I have PTSD. For a long time I thought that made me weak. I thought it meant I'd failed. But I learned something important. Your struggles don't define your strength. How you face them does." She saw recognition in some of the soldiers' eyes, fear in others, skepticism in a few. "This program isn't going to cure you," she continued. "Trauma doesn't work that way. But it's going to give you tools to work with your trauma instead of against it. It's going to teach you that being honest about your struggles is an act of courage, not weakness. and it's going to prove to you that you can still be an excellent soldier while also being human. Over the next months, the program grew. Rachel worked with psychologists, with other veterans, with Commander Mitchell, who flew in quarterly to guest lecture. They developed protocols, training modules, support systems. And soldiers started to heal. Not all of them. Some struggles ran too deep. Some wounds needed more than the program could offer. But many found their way back. They learned to climb their own ropes, literal and metaphorical. 1 year after Rachel's completion of advanced combat training, she received a letter. It was from a soldier she'd worked with in the program, a young corporal who'd been on the verge of ending his career, possibly his life. Captain Morgan, the letter read, "I wanted you to know that I just completed advanced combat training. I passed every drill. But more importantly, I passed the night navigation exercise, even though darkness has terrified me since my deployment. I kept remembering what you told us. Acknowledge the fear, understand it, work with it. You saved my life, ma'am, not by being perfect, but by being honest. Thank you." Rachel pinned the letter on her office wall, next to her completion certificate from advanced combat training. She looked at them both, reminders of her journey from failure to success, from shame to pride, from fighting herself to finally working with herself. Her phone buzzed. Commander Mitchell, checking in as he did every few weeks. "How's the program?" Rachel typed back, "Changing lives, including mine. Thank you for everything, Commander." "You did the work, Captain. I just spoke one sentence. You did the rest." Rachel smiled. He was right, of course. But that one sentence had been the key that unlocked everything else. Sometimes that's all it takes, the right words at the right moment from someone who understands. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see soldiers training on the obstacle course. Some were struggling. Some were excelling. All of them were trying. Just like her. Still trying, still fighting, still climbing her own ropes. But now she knew the secret. The hardest battles aren't against the course. They're against yourself. And winning doesn't mean being perfect. It means showing up, being honest, and refusing to quit. Rachel Morgan had failed every combat drill, until a SEAL commander spoke one sentence, and then she'd learned that failure isn't the end of the story.